All right, my friends, welcome back to the RPG Backlog, a podcast where we go through games in our backlog, have fun, play with friends, talk with friends. We chose a game that was, I guess, technically in my backlog, the Final Fantasy Tactics, although I picked it up with the Ivalice Chronicles, which was a brand new game. I'm here with some friends. We're going to go around the horn and introduce ourselves. First, I'm Larry, the professor. I play games. I teach at a college, and I'm here sort of trying to run this podcast. And I'm going to toss to Travis.
I don't think I need to say my name again since you already said it, but yeah, Travis.
Just say it 3 times. And Travis.
Three times, Travis. Is this
Perfect.
like a...
Then he appears.
Yeah. You could probably describe me as a grumpy old gamer. Is probably the best way to put it.
So
For
accurate.
lack of a better description, I think, Larry, you would agree with that one.
That's perfect. Yep, 100%.
Yeah. Have a little bit of history with this game. Have a little bit of history with Final Fantasy in general. So happy to have this conversation. So, Tom, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, I'm Tom. I guess before we started doing this, I was pretty much a Final Fantasy neophyte kind of thing. I'd played 7 and 9 a million years ago, but that was kind of it. I feel like I'm much more middle of the pack now in terms of my credentials, since we have 1 through 4 under our belts and now tactics as well. I'm very excited to talk about this game because I think you all, we started this months and months ago, and you all finished it months and months ago. I finished it last weekend. So the end of the game is extremely vivid in my memory, and then the rest of it is super hazy. So looking forward to talking about my experience. And then with us, I guess, for the first time, even though we've been chit-chatting about this for a while, is my friend from high school, Ethan.
Yeah, hi. I'm Ethan. I also am a professor, come to think of it, and I also play games. This is, now that I'm thinking about it, this is like one of like the 3 or 4 Final Fantasy games I've ever actually played. But this is maybe my favorite game of all time. And I played the re-release. I played the iOS release of the PSP version and the original on the PlayStation like 25 years ago at this point. So, big fan.
Awesome. Well, Ethan, I'm going to have
great company then. Dang.
For sure. I'm going to have you on the sister podcast, Prof and Dev Play Games, so we can just be Prof and Prof Play Games. Sorry, Anthony, we're kicking you to the curb. Got 2 profs in the house.
Brutal.
All right, so we're talking about Final Fantasy Tactics. This came out in 1997 for the PlayStation. This was a game I watched Travis and Anthony, who's on the Prof and Dev Play Games podcast, play a lot. And I always thought, this looks boring. It's just like...
You are so wrong in that assessment, my friend.
Little chibi dudes on this grid-based square. It's kind of like an isometric view, and they're kind of just doing these slow little battles, and there's some text in between. I was like, that doesn't seem that interesting. I was wrong. I was so wrong. But I never played this until that came out in September 30th, 2025. Yep. Which is when exactly I got COVID. And we were going to slow roll this and, play through it and talk about it, like we do with the other games week by week or whatever. And I blasted through it in 65 hours that week. And I haven't played it since then. So, yeah. But Travis and Ethan, you played this, I think, originally. I know Travis did originally. Ethan, did you too back in 97?
Yeah, on a borrowed copy on a borrowed PSX. I'm not even sure I beat it the first time in the PlayStation. And then I used to emulate it when I would just like play through it while I was supposed to be paying attention in class in college. And then, yeah. The iOS version was a big godsend. I would play it on my iPhone when my kids were small. So, there's a lot of just sitting around in a chair, like waiting for something to happen. And I was Ramsden, Delita and Co. were my buddies then. So.
And they were buddies too, but they didn't, I suppose, end up there. But we'll talk about that. Travis, what about you? You played this originally as well.
I mean, yes. A borrowed copy from Anthony. Kind of like my Final Fantasy VII was a borrowed copy from Anthony. And I think in both situations, well, I know with 7 I beat it before Anthony did. I think he might have actually completed it before he passed it over to me. And I remember having that old Prima guide trying to figure out how to get to the different job classes back in the day, and that thing falling apart almost from flipping back and forth through the pages, just trying to figure out how to get to certain job classes and all that fun
Are
stuff.
those things glued together with spit? Like they always fell apart immediately.
And this game was one of those ones where you, back in the day, like nowadays, you have the internet. I can look it up. Very easy. But back then, that was your only way to know how to get that job class. They didn't tell you diddly squat in the game what you need to do to get from one job to the next. Yeah, that thing fell apart real fast on us. I think we ended up having to buy a second copy because of it.
Well, I think they put a half-life on those things, so like you're just gonna fall apart on you, so you have to buy a second one.
It was designed obsolescence for
Exactly.
that they anticipated them going through. That was the same thing for, I had Prima guides for Pokemon and Ocarina of Time, and both of them in shambles these days.
Yep.
I mean, if you can find one of those original copies, man, they're several $100s, if not a couple thousand at this point, which is kind of scary. But
yeah, I know they don't do guides anymore for the most part, but did they do one for Ivalice Chronicles anywhere? Did they do like a re-release of any kind?
Sometimes
it wasn't a true guide. It was like a book on it. There was a lot of knockoffs that were doing it that weren't official, that were trying to pass themselves off as official. But I didn't see an official one. Otherwise, I would have grabbed it instantly.
Oh, yeah. I just Googled that real quick, and there's a bunch with covers that are very clearly AI generated.
Stress.
That's depressing.
Yeah.
My other piece of nostalgia about this game is that it was actually my first kind of experience of being a nerd in online communities. Was the AOL message board for this game was very active back in 1998, 1999. And if you look at a bunch of the older guides on GameFAQs, I recognize a bunch of the usernames from that board. Like people were figuring out the Battle Mechanics guide was written by a guy from that board. It was like there was all of this stuff that people were figuring out, like exactly how, deriving the different height mechanics worked and how much damage stuff would do, and that the algebraic formulas were for everything. And it was, it was a lot of fun. And it was also just like a group of really gatekeepy, grumpy nerds that I had to ingratiate myself to as a 12-year-old or something, way too young to be on the internet posting with strangers. But it was
the late 90s is what we did.
Nothing
bad happened.
We all went through something like that with some fandom, I'm sure. Well, the crunchiness of the algebraic equations or whatever, I think the crunchiness is the first thing that stood out to me from this game. Like actually having it in my hands, like beyond the story, beyond the characters, like just the fact that you can do so much, you can figure out so much, you can kind of break your party, you can build kind of weird ass parties or overpowered parties, or I guess for me originally playing this game, not knowing what I was doing, super weak ass parties.
Yep.
Because then I hit the Dorter slums and I was like, what the fuck? I can't. Am I supposed to die here? Like, yes, apparently that was the first skill check.
That was really so because I had this, and later when we get a little deeper into the weeds, I want to talk about the Wii Graph battle, but the Dorter slums. There was something about, and I don't know if this says more about me, but running into that stuff and being like, what the actual hell? This is super hard. Clearly, I must have missed something. Going and looking up, and it was like, somehow the top 5 most challenging battles in the whole game, that Dorter Slums is on there, despite the fact that you probably bump into it like less than 10 hours into the game, kind of thing.
Yep.
Oh yeah, Dorter Slums like this 3rd level, maybe, or the 3rd scenario.
It's like the 3rd or 4th battle.
Yeah,
it's the first big wake up call in that game.
And I liked that at least to a point where, because it was like, oh, okay. Like it's sort of like a rite of passage instead of, because you could imagine if you didn't have nostalgia for this game and you bump into something like that, it's like, oh, this just sucks. Why is it so hard at the beginning? I'm not having fun kind of deal. But I think they did a nice job, because I assume that the balance and the mechanics of all this stuff was largely left untouched in the Ivalice Chronicles, like revamp or whatever, which I think is a big testament to, how well it was made originally, however many, was that 20 years ago or something.
I kind of feel like they tuned it down a little.
It's easier.
To be honest.
Yeah.
So this was, to be fair, right? And then this is one of those games where, like Ethan, this is my all-time favorite game. hands down. Like Larry, you've heard me gush about this game
forever,
more times than I can even talk. I've always loved this game, and it's one of those ones that I was. When this came out, I was afraid I was going to have rose tinted glasses with this, and I was just going to love it because it is what it is, and because of my nostalgia with it. And they put just enough. They kept it the same, but added enough to it to make me love this game even more, which is something I didn't think was going to happen. But I do feel like they tuned it down a little bit, because I can remember that first skill check when I first played this on the PlayStation freaking 20 years ago, almost 30 years ago. Oh my God.
You're old. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't remind me, man.
12 years ago, 30 years ago, basically the same.
It's the same. Time's a flat circle.
Once you get to my age, it's all the same shit. I remember hitting that wall on the PlayStation and getting pissed off at it. Not that it was hard, but like at myself for making, like I could see the mistakes I made that led to my demise.
Well, and that piece specifically, I know we'll talk about it later with WeGraph, but playing the original version, if you didn't have multiple save files running, I feel like you could lock yourself out of progress if you really fucked up your build and you couldn't go back anymore.
That was what I read before too, and that's
I was going to say one of the things, it's hard for me to tell on the difficulty if it's in tuned that much, because I was playing, so Ivalice Chronicles added the higher difficulty level, and I decided to play on that because I like punishing myself apparently. So that did tweak the balance a little bit in a way that made it harder, and I definitely lost battles that I don't usually lose. But also there's so many quality of life changes that make it easier and make it harder for you to really lock yourself out. So like, for instance, you can skip random battles, or you know, when you're placing your units at the beginning of a fight, like you can kind of see where they're actually going to be, as opposed to it just sort of being placing them in a void, and hopefully you've put everybody kind of facing the enemies the right way.
It was like complete fog of war in the original one. There were just squares
basically,
and you put them there.
Until the map fully loaded, yes. But like when you know how like when it tells you, it gives you that little grid and says, okay, you can place your units here. It just gave you those little grids. It didn't show the map and show where on the map you were going to be. You just saw these blue squares in like an L shape or something. You just placed them there and hope to hell you were facing the right direction. You didn't know. Figured out
eventually you can spin the camera around, and you can usually even catch a glimpse of like a couple of the enemies that are on there.
You couldn't do that in the original.
Yeah.
But one big change they made was that when there's a sequence of battles, you couldn't back out of it. Right. So like, you know, there's a couple of spots in the game where it's like you're going to fight 4 or 5 battles in a row without going back to the world map. Right. And if you had not had a pre-save before you entered that sequence, then if you just got stuck in the middle, then you were hosed. There was nothing you could do. So the WeGraph battle,
restart the whole game.
Pretty much, yeah. Unless you had multiple saves, and of course, back in the PSX era, you were saving on memory cards, and you know some
could only hold a handful of those. Yeah.
I don't want to delete Spyro saves or whatever the hell it was.
So maybe I had an advantage because I had already beaten Final Fantasy VII before coming into this, and I had learned my lesson there that I always kept a running rotation of 3 saves. So I would be like, okay, here's save 1. My next save would be in save 2, then save 3, and then I'd go back to 1, 2, and 3, and I kept doing that.
Right.
So that saved my butt in tactics more times than I care to admit, because the other thing that I will add to this is the first time for me, in my experience, when I played this originally, where the random battles, the NPCs level up with you.
Yeah.
Like, in 7, you're in a certain area, you eventually level out of them, and you're just kind of, okay, I can one-shot everything. In Tactics, you go back to that original area, and you're level 60, guess what? Everything in there is level 60, and it can wipe you off the face of the map just as easily as it could when you were level 1.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the things where the random battles would just gobble up save files if you didn't have multiple, because you go into a random battle, you can't skip it, you're forced to it. Next thing you know, you watch 3 of your top guys get killed and you can't get to res them in time, and now they're completely gone for good.
So I want to ask a question of the group, because you mentioned, we haven't talked about this yet, one of the kind of, I would say, defining characteristics of this game is that you're kind of playing for keeps in basically every battle. That there's a mechanic by which you actually lose your guys forever. Did you, because I'd had that happen a couple of times, and when it happened, I'd be like, okay, I'm just restarting this battle. Do you guys like play with like some house rules where you force yourself to actually lose that person, or was there something where you were just squeaking by and you decided to actually cut somebody loose that it wasn't worth restarting the battle to make sure they made it through?
For me, it was the latter at the beginning. Like I don't know who it was, like a squire or an archer or something.
Yeah.
That I lost early on towards the end of a battle that was difficult for me. And I was like, I'm not going to redo this battle, so I left that person behind.
Okay.
But then I was like, I sort of spent a lot of time on that character, and for the rest of the game, I would restart if someone had died.
Yeah, that was me too. I was like completely unwilling to let anyone go.
So. Ethan, go for it. Like, I've been talking quite a bit, so go for it, man.
Oh yeah, that was definitely. It depends on where I am, like what phase of the game I'm in. I think, and because I know what's coming, and where you're going to get a bunch of special units later in chapter 3 and chapter 4 that are going to be better than your generics, and so. Kind of once I know there's certain spots where I'm like, okay, look, I'm going to lose somebody in this battle, but it doesn't matter because I'm about to get Mustadio or something. And like, so I don't care if I lose my cleric here.
Yeah,
by the end of the game, I'm rolling with, a squad of like 5 people with special sprites and going with that. If I ever lose one of those, I would restart because I would be really sad if, Orlando dies or whatever.
Was no longer with you.
Right.
Exactly. I've never tried to Iron Man. Just like, okay, I'm not going to restart if I lose a unit. That would be an interest. I mean, probably not that hard of a challenge. It would be kind of a fun challenge, but
I was going to say this time around, I didn't have that issue really. And again, kind of like Ethan, like some of those non-named ones, if I knew I was getting close to, Mustadio is a great one. Agrius is another one. A couple others that you get later on, I knew were around the corner. So I was like, okay, I'm willing to let these guys slide right now.
Yeah.
I will tell you that back in the original one, it happened way more often because, again, it goes back to the thing. It's like you go through 4 battles back to back to back, right? If you've put all this time and effort into someone and you're like in the 3rd battle and one of your guys goes down, you're like, oh, crap, I'm going to enter the 4th battle straight up. And I don't have someone to replace this. I'm kind of hosed going in this because you're going down a squad member, essentially. And so it's kind of one of those things of, do you restart it and lose that time period? And it depends on where your save was. Because sometimes you get to a point where you're like, I'm so far into this and I haven't saved. This is probably my own mistake. Like, I can remember I haven't saved in 4 hours. Oh my God, I don't want to go through all of that stuff just to keep this one person. Right. So I remember there losing them more often because of those situations where I was like, okay, I've gone through this gauntlet and I'm going to try and power through. I made it through. Guess what? That person's gone. I don't care. Or I've spent too much time. This one is a little bit easier to go back. But again, it was also kind of one of those things where I knew someone was around the corner. So screw it. Let's go.
Well, for me, I didn't know who was coming around the corner. I guess I knew Cloud, I guess spoilers for chapter 4.
Yeah.
I knew Cloud was coming up eventually, but I didn't know who was coming up, who was recruitable. There were some that I missed. Like I got Mustadio and Agrius in chapter 2. And then I believe I picked up Beowulf. I think I used Beowulf for most of the time. And then Construct 8 was the robot, right?
Yeah.
The hurt itself. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got that one. I used that one quite a bit. And then Sid or Orlando.
Orlando.
Cloud, yeah. I think that's all the ones maybe there's one more that I got. I can't remember, but I didn't know they were coming. But as soon as I got some of those, especially in chapter 4, like once you get past the chapter 3 and WeGraph, which we'll talk about, chapter 4, I felt like it kept getting harder and harder. But doing the side quests or whatever to recruit some of those stronger extra characters sort of kicked people that I've been using quite a bit in my party out because they were. These are just. I felt like they were broken special characters.
I mean, I guess I could say they're broken, but at the same time, those no-named characters, if you built them the right way, you could make them just as broken, if not more broken, than some of the named ones. Right.
Yeah. And I think I've heard that a lot about this game, where you can kind of tweak and I guess we haven't talked about it, but the way that you kind of get jobs and open up new jobs is like leveling up current jobs. Like level 8 of a squire becomes and level 4 of something else together opens up, like a geomancer or whatever. I'm making this up, but it's kind of a little esoteric how you open up those new job classes. Although I think
it just tells you.
the current version kind of like lays that out for you. Maybe it was more esoteric before.
That was really, I mean, you talk about going through the guide, Travis, and stuff. Yeah, I can see how that'd be kind of annoying. This was really nice. It's like, oh, you want to be, and it doesn't even tell you. I'm pretty sure, I can't remember, but I think even if you don't know what it is, so like the stuff deep on there, like the ninja or something like that, it doesn't tell you that it's a ninja, but it says, hey, you need to fill up these other jobs, and then you can see what this is. That seemed fair. Like, I don't know. That was a good balance of like, oh, you got to work for this, but not making you guess at what classes were going to open that up. I appreciate it.
Yeah, because I was saying in the game, it sit there and like it would show you the class the next level down, right?
Right.
So like if you were a black mage, I think it would show you the time mage underneath him and say like, oh, you need to do these things to get to the time mage. But then you'd see something else below the time mage, and it's like it's a black thing that says, oh, you need this. And if you hadn't discovered that, the class would be like, you need X levels in time mage, you need X levels in this unknown class.
Yeah, question marks. Yeah.
Which in the original game, it was like, hey, here's the game. You leveled up, and then you would go and look at your change job, and you'd be like, oh, here's a new job.
There's a new thing. Yeah.
And you had no idea how to get to it. So you can even ask, and Larry's probably aware of this because Anthony and I probably talked about it in nauseum in high school about how the fact if you didn't have that guide, you were SOL in figuring out how to get to any of the jobs. You just had to kind of happenstance upon them.
That was actually kind of a fun aspect of playing it back in the late 90s, right? Was that this was the era where you had dumb internet rumors about things that you could do that were just not true. Like, oh, well, if you master all of the jobs, then you can be a Dark Knight like Gafgarian. Like, it's sort of, spoilers for a 30-year-old game, right? But this is sort of like, you can resurrect Eris in Final Fantasy VII. It's like, okay, man.
It's like playground rumors, writ large.
Exactly. No, and it is a little, or, getting Mew by pushing the truck and the original Pokemon, right? Like, it is a little sad, I guess, that all of that stuff is just, it doesn't, I don't know if kids do that anymore, right?
I think it probably exists, but it must be more like fractured, right? It cannot have the cultural cachet that it once did because you have access to 100,000 of those different rumors, and all of them sort of spring up and are smashed down in real time kind of thing with the internet. Whereas this other stuff, people sort of piled on because some of them sounded like they might be true, right? But they weren't. But there was nobody to say that you had to. That was also the gimmick, right? And how you could kind of tease it out was, like you said, Ethan. You got to master all the job classes, and it's like, even if it's true, I don't know if I want to do that.
I mean, I did it back in the day. But because I can remember when this came out, there was the rumor about Cloud being in it, and everyone's like, no, it's not. And I vaguely remember the Prima guy being like, oh, if you do this, you'll get a special character that joins your party, but be aware that they're level 1, and it didn't actually tell you who it was in chapter 4. And everyone's like, oh, it's Cloud. And everyone's like, there's like, some people are like, it's Cloud. And there's a bunch of people like going, yeah, you're full of it. There's no way. And then I remember when Anthony and I got there, and Anthony and I were like, holy shit, it's Cloud. And then, but then the thing is like, he's level 1 and you're like level 6. You're like, oh my God, I've got to go level this full up for days.
And you need to get his sword by going to the top of the, a random battle with a move find item. And
it's on top of a tower. That's right.
Volcano, I believe.
Oh, volcano.
Yeah. Volcano.
I mean, volcanoes are really just towers of nature.
But I just remember that and being like, that was a rumor that no one wanted to believe, or people wanted to believe, but no one believed it because there's so few people that actually accomplished it at the time, or at least there wasn't that much prevalent information like there is now. But yeah, it was just an interesting time.
In the update, they made that, like, I think you start that by going to the Clockwork City that Mustadio is from. And But then after that, I know I'm curious about this, about the original one too. The Ivalice Chronicles like tells you exactly what to do with the little blue marker on the screen. It's like, oh, okay, you've started a side quest. Like, go here, go here, go here. Mm-hmm. I thought that was going to be a lot harder, and it's like, oh no, you just like go and show up, and sometimes there's a battle. But then I thought it was going to be a huge thing to get Cloud. It's like, oh no, I like cranked that out in 25 minutes.
Well, so like Cloud, they didn't actually tell you what to do or where to go back in the original one.
On the side quest, like even once it had started.
Once you started it, it was like you had to read, and if you weren't paying attention to what they said in text,
okay,
you didn't know what to do. Like it didn't give you a marker, it didn't tell you diddly squat. And that was the way, as I recall, with a lot of the side quests, is it didn't hold your hand. And maybe it's because you had to read everything and there was no voice acting, that they just assumed that you would pay attention. I don't know.
Yeah. And it has to be said that the translation for the original on the PlayStation was a little rough. It had some really great, there's some lines that I prefer from the original translation relative to the Or the Lions one and the updated one. But there's a lot of stuff that was probably a little bit more obscure because of just translation.
It wasn't
mistakes.
Obvious that it's like, I'm thinking of like Zelda, where they make the important shit like a different color. They're not doing that.
But, I mean, they were just like, sometimes there would just be mistakes, right? Like, and they weren't patching them, right? So, they'd have the wrong name for a character or something, and
so this is a good, I think, maybe point. Something I was thinking about as I was driving home, getting ready to do this, was one of the things that absolutely blew me away with this game was the script. And maybe I'm just kind of a sucker for is it an Elizabethan dialect? How are they talking funny? What is the term for that? Does anybody know? Like what their little accents are?
I think of it as Shakespearean. So
yeah. That's what I said, Shakespearean.
Like that took
Middle English.
me a little getting used to. Like it comes on as a little bit put on at the beginning of the game, but pretty soon I was all in on it. And I think, maybe we can talk separately about the story, but I was very, very surprised, pleasantly so, by how good the script specifically was in this game. Because I'm thinking there's lots of other games that have good stories, but any individual line of dialogue, you take it or leave it, whatever, it's there to sort of move the plot forward. But this in particular, I thought the writing was really, really good, and the voice acting matched it super well. And so I can kind of imagine what the old version was like, and obviously the gameplay and all of that is still fun. But I thought that those were huge things in the plus column, I would say, for this remaster, was the voice acting and the writing and the script.
Oh, see, I kind of dislike the voice acting, and maybe that's again nostalgia. Like
I was gonna say, if you don't know any different, yeah.
But I there are some choices some of the voice actors are making that I feel like are kind of, and I say this as somebody who did this, high school student doing Shakespeare, right? Like it's,
but it's clearly intentional, right? I mean, that's like a directorial decision, I think here. I
assume so. I'm not a big fan of the choices that they were making for Ramzo, where he always just sounds like a putz. And I realize that he is a putz, but like,
like he's too whiny, or?
No, he just comes off as like naive all the time, which he is, but also like literally he sounds like a high school student, trying to sound like an adult. Whereas some of the other voice acting I like quite a bit. There's some of them, oh gosh, like some of the villains get to be really fun and like kind of campy in a good way, but I feel like the main players I'm not as big of a fan of. But I know the script is great. There's a couple of line changes in the translation. Like in the original, there's towards the beginning, for instance, Delita says, blame yourself for the father, which I think in the original was blame yourself for God, which I think comes off as a little bit punchier.
Yeah. I've seen that one specifically called out as one where the starkness of the translation, I think, was more affecting than when they kind of tried to massage it to fit more with the world building of
and they added in a lot of incidental, like I think this is a good thing, but they added it for your special characters, like, your Mustadios or whatever. Like, once their part of the story was done in the original, they were pretty much done. Like, they were just like anything else. Whereas in this version,
that you were carrying through, yeah.
Yeah, but in this version, they've added dialogue for all of those guys, at different points in different later battles. And so it kind of creates an incentive to maybe use those characters, even if we're planning on it, just to see that stuff. And I feel like some of that writing is a little bit weaker than the original script, but still fun. I mean, like it was a nice to be like, oh, okay, like, I'm going to go through this battle with Rias or somebody that I wouldn't normally use because, I got spoiled into which battles had the special dialogue, but not what it was. And so I was like, bring in units that wouldn't normally bring in.
Yeah, there were moments where, and I can't remember who it was now, where I think there was like a brother and a sister pair or on different sides of this battle or whatever, where
Rafa I can't remember who Rafa's brother is, but
Malik,
yeah.
Yeah, maybe it was them, where I brought them forward because I knew that they had some sort of position in that battle that some of my no names on my bench didn't. And it did bring out that dialogue, that special dialogue. I think for me, to Tom's point, the writing stood out to me incredibly well, partially because I'm just a huge Game of Thrones fan, and War of the Lions. And I was like, this is, War of the Roses. And it's just so cool to see that playing out here in a video game that is just so, like, on every front, so well done. Because I came to this from Fire Emblem. I'm a huge Fire Emblem fan. Really like tactics games, and then continued, by Anthony or by Travis, by others, to say, well, you like tactics games, but you haven't played Final Fantasy Tactics? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, Fire Emblem is really good. And then you play this and you're like, wow, I know Fire Emblem came first. 1990 was the first Fire Emblem. And I think Ogre Battle came soon after that, because a lot of the crew who did the 97, 98 version of this game came from there, from Ogre. But the depth of the story alone just eclipses easily anything in Fire Emblem. And then
I think it's so unexpected too, right? Because for a game where it's a tactical game, like the gameplay is the whole draw, right? It's the ideas that you're the army commander and you're making 1,000 of these little strategic decisions and stuff like where that is the draw, that this thing, it basically, in some sense, has no right to have a story this good, or that it was really, really surprising. You just don't expect it.
Sorry, go ahead, Travis.
So the one thing that I will say is this game back in 97, the translation had some jank in it, but it's still, there was only one other game I've ever played that rivals this in story as far as I'm concerned. And it rivals it and doesn't surpass it because, like most of the games in the 90s, they ran out of time or money and had to jank the last portion of the game. Right. But this feels like the one time that the developers, the writers, the studio, everything was given the time and the budget to do the full project without any rushing. And I will say, like, this story has something that has aged beautifully. Like, it's still to this day at resonant. I love it. It's amazing. I do remember that some of the characters did in the original have little dialogues if you brought them into the right battles, but the problem is there was nothing that told you that did it. But I can remember having some of them in there, like the brother and sister, and they would go back and forth every once in a while. And I know Mustadio every once in a while would say something, or Beowulf every once in a while would say something. Everyone would say something every once in a while if they were in the right situation and the right battle, but you had no way of knowing it.
Right.
I will say, with the voice acting with this, I came into this game thinking I was going to utterly despise it because of my nostalgia with the original, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, even with Ramza, I know I agree with Ethan. He sounds like that kind of whiny high school kid, but then at the same time, I have to remind myself that they are actually high schoolers for the most part. Right? Like, Delita and Ramza are actually they're like 15, 16 years old when this thing starts. So to me, like I see where you're coming from and I get it, but I thoroughly enjoyed the voice acting and I expected to, full disclosure, I expected to hate it.
Well, there was something I heard recently on a podcast. This is not my thought. This is Kirk Hamilton from Triple Click, who was also the Strong Songs podcast and formerly of Kotaku, where he was talking about his theory, or not theory, whatever, his idea is that the older games that did not have voice acting, music was the voice acting. The different types of songs, the different kinds of styles of music stood in for, when you're reading the text or whatever, like added to that. And his take was that he had the same trepidation about the voice acting, and that for the most part, he felt like the voice acting kind of stuck to that, like it really nailed the tone of what the music was setting in the original. And the pieces, I think I agree with Ethan. Ramza specifically sort of struck me the wrong way, except for Argath, who I fucking hated.
But you're supposed to hate him.
Yes, they did a very good job because he was so fucking annoying. So
he's like King Joffrey, essentially.
Yes, exactly. It was just like King Joffrey. But I was thinking, the way that these dioramas are set up, they're like representative of like larger units and larger forces and these huge battles happening. And it's kind of told in a storybook sort of way, diorama sort of way, that sometimes when Ramza was sort of playing that up, I kind of felt like, oh, this is like for a story conceit.
Isn't that the framing device, though?
It is for
the Durai papers or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it stood out to me as something that fit, because it was being told. So that's the voice acting sort of lent that piece,
almost like you're seeing like a performance of it instead of the actual thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that works. I think that there's some of the character that Cardinal Rudovich in particular gets to be very campy and broad. And I wish there had been more of that, maybe for, I think there's just higher energy voice acting throughout. I sort of wish they'd made, what's his face? Elmdor talk like a vampire when he's a vampire. Like that would have been fun, right? I mean, like, I don't know, if we're gonna lead into this as sort of like a play or a story thing, then I'd say exactly. Do it.
Lean harder. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the one thing that I will say is the whole point of this is, to Tom's point, is this is literally a historian recounting the actual events that happened. So we're literally watching, even though you get the feeling that you are partaking in the story, you're really supposed to be someone on the outside being told a story from a third-party person's view,
like a non-primary source.
Yeah, we're not looking at through Ramza's or Delita's eye. Well, primarily Ramza's eyes. We're looking at the historian recounting what Ramza actually went through in this time period.
Right.
And Ramza is supposed to be this sort of forgotten figure relative to King Delita, who was, a legendary, born as a peasant, like rose to be king kind of guy.
Yeah.
Can we put a pin in this, like maybe for a minute, because this all hinges on the end of the game, which I experienced.
Yeah, that's true. Yes,
sure. Yes. At least try and couch that at the end, but I do want to set aside some time to talk about it, because man, was that an ending.
Yeah. So why don't we, unless we want to go a different direction, kind of go through chapter by chapter? We don't need to go through each battle. My God, we'll be here for days. But maybe just kind of overview of like something that stood out to us from chapter 1, chapter 2, 3, and 4 to kind of walk us towards the ending. Does that work for us?
Yeah. Can I say a setup thing about the plot that I did not understand until this most recent time, which is really sad, which is that I didn't realize that the whole backdrop of this was that Ivalice had lost the 50 Years' War.
Oh, yeah. That's a big thing.
I think that I just kind of skimmed over that when I was 12.
Well, yeah, of course. Right.
Sort of thought that it was like, oh, this had been a civil war or something, because, the game is about a civil war. And so it was like, oh, I thought that, but I was like, but if it was a civil war, like, why are all these people know each other and like talk like they were friends? And I was like, oh, okay. So that's why they'd lost a war, and that's why everybody is
external conflict, right? With a place that we never hear about or see in the course of the game.
Yes.
Like
and I just did not clock that when I was a preteen. And I think that it just never bothered me. And I think that actually the updated, maybe this is an advantage of the voice acting, is that I actually listened to what was going on.
Well, and the one more point on the voice acting and the ease of use thing, being able to autoplay the dialogue I don't. Did you guys use that at all, where you just like let it advance through itself?
Oh yeah,
That was nice because it was. I don't know. I felt like it was a really nice balance between not having to mash through the stuff on my own and getting to kind of sit back and enjoy it like a cutscene, without it really taking you out of the game, like going to some FMV kind of thing. That was actually a question I wanted to ask before we get into chapter 1, because I watched some videos and stuff about this after I finished it, and I'm seeing a bunch of animatics. I don't know what to call them. Were there cutscenes in the original, or is that all from War of the Lions?
That is from the PSP release. Yeah, that's from War of the Lions.
Okay. What do you mean by
well, no, okay. So there was some in-engine stuff.
Yeah. So like there was scenes where it looks like the battles, right? Where they would have the characters move around, like you see sometimes pre-battle where they kind of sit there and go back and forth talking.
Or they talk to each other and stuff. No, not that.
So in the very beginning, right? When Ramza goes to the tower and to get the princess, and then there's a whole conversation and you see Delita go out the back.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was a type of quote unquote cut scene. Like that was in the original. Right. Those are the type of cutscenes that you would see.
Pre-scripted events, but they still happen on the grid for the battle.
Yes.
I'm like an example that I've noticed of this was so somewhere, and again I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but whenever Tetra bites it, there's essentially a cutscene animated in the style of like the concept art, like the cover art of the box, where the dudes. They look like that. That's all I think from the re-release from 2007 or something like that. I was kind of, those look really nice. I was sort of surprised that they didn't make it into this version, but it sounds like they really, instead of going back to War of the Lions and adding on to that, they went back to the original, and that was sort of the foundation, and they built up on top of that. So that's why you didn't get some of that stuff.
Well, and they didn't even have. You're right, and then they didn't even have the source code. They had to like redo it all from scratch, and they were kind of hewing.
That's right.
Yeah, they lost it.
Yep, they were hewing. I mean, Square in that era, correct me if I'm wrong, like would just rewrite over their servers or whatever.
They needed storage, right?
They basically found bits and pieces of it from a bunch of different people throughout the internet that had like ripped it from the original disc and then pieced it back together.
That's crazy.
But I will tell you that autoplay, Tom, is a godsend because I can remember back in the original one having to click the freaking X button.
And if you have to restart, because a lot of those battles have a ton of exposition at the start of them, and some of them are hard. And so you play it a couple of times. Not just even the autoplay is nice, but then the fast forward.
Yep.
Oh, let me just lean on this so I don't have to listen to this conversation 100 times.
I will tell you the number of times that I would just sit there mashing the X button and redoing in the original one when I had to redo some of those battles.
Yeah.
I wanted to punch a wall, but I was like, oh my gosh.
I can imagine.
Yeah, man. Yeah, the quality of life improvements here made this so much better for me. Like when your folks die and you're like, I got to redo this, you can just speed run, the fast forward to get back to at least the beginning, if not a little further, which was nice.
So chapter one is essentially is basically just a framing device, right? Like you start in the kind of in situ, but almost there's maybe like one battle that happens in the quote unquote present. And then most of it is a flashback to like when Delita and Ramza were cadets, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause they're kidnapping the princess, right? At some point in this beginning part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the opening battle is, and one little funny thing is a quality of life improvement. So you have that battle where you're only controlling Ramza and everybody else does their thing. Mm-hmm. And then the first actual battle where you have control of everybody is sort of in the flashback when they're cadets. And in the original, it was not clear to everybody that you could actually place units other than Ramza. And so a non-trivial number of people, I guess, I remember, would just have Ramza in that fight. Be like, why is this game so hard? I only have like 2 guys. It's like, because there's other ways to place other units. So they actually have, specific instructions in this version that keep you from doing that, which is nice.
Larry, you should ask Anthony. I'm pretty sure he did that.
Oh my God, just did Ramza?
Yeah, I vaguely remember him telling me about that before I borrowed the game from him.
Oh, that's so funny. No, they definitely signpost it better here that you can use more characters than just one. And I think that, just the backdrop, and correct me if I'm wrong for folks who were deeper into the story than I was, but we're starting with the kingdom we're in. Ivalice has suffered defeat at the end of the 50 Years' War. And there's a bunch of soldiers that are just like, I don't know, sad, upset, just how everything went. And they became the Corpse Brigade. And I think Ramza is working as a cadet. They're all working together to like bring the Corpse Brigade to heal. And that's kind of how this whole thing begins.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Corpse Brigade is supposed to be sort of like the peasantry that had been drafted into the war and then kind of gotten cut loose. And Ramsed all are like the sons of the nobility who are in like a military academy. And that's Delita being in the academy is kind of a thing because he's not nobility, right? Like right. He's just kind of a guy that hangs out with however you're supposed to say Ramses' last name. I've been saying it wrong for 30 years. I'm not going to start saying it right now.
How do you say it?
It's. I think I want to say Beowulf, but that's not right. It's like Beowulf, right? Like it's so wrong.
Still in there, yeah. Beowulf.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like Beowulf.
Yeah. Anyway,
and then help me here. Delita is not his actual brother, right? Delita is like a brother in arms or
a childhood friend.
Yeah,
they sort of like a ward that he got brought up.
There's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. Delita and Tita in the original.
Tifa is in this? Holy shit.
Well, you didn't
max all of the characters twice, and
I will go back and play this.
Female monk, and dancer, and then
oh my god, exactly. So yeah, then we're moving through chapter 1, kind of going through some marshlands or whatever they're called, and then you hit the Dorter slums, which we talked about earlier, with that difficulty spike. And then for me, I would probably, there were obviously a lot of things that happened that we can all touch on, but the thing that stands out for me after the Dorter slums is the very last mission, the Ziekten Fortress, where you're going against Argath. Because I died there like 10 times. And
is that the first battle where they split your party?
Oh,
or at least to me, it was one.
No. Oh gosh,
I can't remember.
And it might be. I think it was notable because of that. Because it was like
split for sure. Yep.
Basically,
very split. Yeah,
like a pincer attack here, and whether you want to or not, and it sort of forced you to reckon with that kind of strategy.
I think you had Delita back in this one, right? Delita was a guest.
He is.
Yeah,
he's a guest throughout the whole first chapter.
Oh, I thought he was gone for a bit and then came back here. Again, it's been a while since I played it.
I think he stays the whole time during the first chapter.
Oh, okay. But just as a guest.
Yeah, you never controlled Delita.
Right.
Which is maybe a metaphor for
in the the PSP version you actually do. One thing that they didn't port over, which I kind of missed, honestly, was that there's a couple of battles in the PSP version where you are playing as Delita, like protecting Ovelia from assassins or whatever. And so you do get to play around as Delita a bit, which, fun.
Well, the Ziekten Fortress, the last one, is where Teacher dies, right? That's
correct.
Where Teacher gets. Yeah, right. That's why it stood out to me. Like that beginning was just like shocking.
I mean, that's kind of Delita's like origin story here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's where you sort of, and I watched like a couple of explainers on the story as a whole here. This is interesting because it goes on, all right, again, spoiler alert, at the end, Delita becomes king, right? That's where this all winds up. Were we supposed to, there was no reason we were supposed to know that, right? We were supposed to clock that he wasn't some character from something else, because I was reading, and obviously this came later, but 12 takes place in the same shared universe. But was this the first game that takes place in Ivalice? Or I want to say like maybe 1 or 2 also does there, but I don't know. I didn't know if we were supposed to know Delita from something else.
No,
okay.
You weren't supposed to know him. That's one thing that I'll say, and someone can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but from my experience, the Final Fantasy, they're not ever, with few exceptions, because I know when you get to 10, there's like 10-2, blah, 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 blah. they don't build off of a previous one. They're their own self-contained things. Even if they exist in the same world, they usually don't touch on anything that happened in the other game.
I think what I'm thinking of is that there's like a rumor or like a fan theory that maybe, I can't remember if it was one of the NES ones that was allegedly, bore some people thought that maybe that was Ivalice or something. I just remember that when we were talking earlier.
12 was in Ivalice, wasn't it?
Oh,
Sure,
definitely.
yeah.
I mean,
you're
they
in
tried to retcon some of the earlier ones.
well, I thought you were in Ordalia, which is the country or what the hell ever that you lost to in the 50 Years War that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain that's true.
Yeah.
Quickly going through my resources here and trying to find that. But yeah. So in terms of the games that were set in Ivalice, I'm pretty sure Tactics was first. 12 was there. I think Vagrant Story was in Ivalice too. That's not a Final Fantasy game, but
Still a Square Enix game.
yeah.
But
I wish they'd build a lot more with it. Yeah.
They usually don't build on each other.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they even if they are in the same world, or like 12, yeah, it's in the same world and it is off the one country and everything that lost, but at the same time there's no mention of anything that happened in Tactics in 12.
I'm
they
on
don't
a
acknowledge it beyond the fact that they're both set in Ivalice.
Ivalice is a Final Fantasy world visited in numerous games that could be considered to form their own subseries, but the Ivalice in each game is vastly different, akin to having a whole new. So they're just using
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, was it this one or 12 where you had to correct me on the pronunciation of Ivalice, because I always pronounced it Ivalice.
It was 12 when we were doing the 12 podcast.
Yeah,
Ivalice sounds cooler.
No, I'm with you.
Like I can remember playing this game back when I was a kid in high school, and I'm like, it's Ivalice. Like that's how I always pronounce it. And then we did 12, and I was like, oh, we're going back to Ivalice, and Larry's like, no, it's Ivalice. I'm like, no, dude, it's Ivalice. And then I hear them say it in the game one time, like, shit.
I mean, it's like what Ethan was saying earlier. Like you play this game, especially when it's just text-based, you're like, I don't know how to pronounce half these words. I don't know how to pronounce half the words in English that I learned. I'm like, I just say them fucking weird. And I teach English for a living. People are like, seriously, that's how you say that word?
Yeah, it's like reading a fantasy novel and then seeing them
exactly.
and going like, ooh, okay, I guess I should have spent more than one fraction of a second on trying to parse what the correct pronunciation is, because you just sort of like run through it with your eyes.
Yep.
I still remember saying quinoa out loud the first time in the grocery store in front of somebody and then being like, no, bud.
It's like
actually,
quinoa. You have quinoa?
Exactly. Tom, to go back, I'm not sure, because there's a bunch of backstory stuff that is kind of optional in the game that, like, again, going back to the framing device of that this is all by being told by Alzaram or however his name is in this translation. And I don't know if you're supposed to. I do think that you kind of know that Delita was a king sort of early on in the game, but it's easy to miss and it's easy to forget.
I think you're right. I think it might even just be like in the started
like back at the time of King Delita, this happened, and now we have the
that it's
papers
hadn't recently. Yeah, there is no other reference to it. You're right, because I think you're right. Because it's some history thing, like, oh man, things were rough, but then King Galita was here. But there's actually, the forgotten hero of that time, and this is that person's story. And I think you're right. It's like a throwaway line almost at the beginning, and then they dump you into the game, and you forget about it. But
so for chapter 1, was there anything else? Was there something that stood out to you? Like I said, the last one really stood out to me. Anything that stands out to you from chapter 1?
Teacher getting killed feels like the big set piece of it, right? That sets up the rest of the story. That was it for me too.
Well, and Argath is such a wonderful villain in the first bit, right? God, like so he's such a piece of shit.
Yeah,
and
really
in the best way, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you totally. I mean, he's a foil, right? Like he is a foil for Ramza, right? They're both both nobles, but Argath is kind of from a disgraced family, and he feels embarrassed about it, and Ramza is actually just a genuinely good person and doesn't super care about being noble. And, but he's so,
he's awful.
He's awful.
He's awful.
And like, it's so satisfying when Delita punches him in the stomach, like all this stuff.
Did you guys see the thing about the update for New Game Plus?
Yeah.
So I saw some like meme kind of screen caps or whatever of basically Argath running his mouth, and then there's a party of 6 level 99 people basically waiting to bring the hammer down at the end. It's like, I bet that feels good.
In the PSP version, they actually bring him back in chapter 4. I think they added a battle where he is like a Zodiac zombie type guy. So you get to kill him again, which is satisfying.
That's awesome.
The one thing that I'll say that stood out to me is I know Titra's like a tertiary character, but the fact that I was like, usually in games, like you see named people, you're like, oh, they're kind of untouchable. And then you see them kill her, you're like, oh, wait, are they just willing to kill anyone at this point? I was like, holy crap, they just killed this innocent girl that has nothing to do with this stuff. Like, what else are they going to do?
Yeah.
And then that leads into chapter 2, where you start to see how messed up this world really is.
Well, let's take that as a segue moving into chapter 2. I think we start back at Dorter, right? We go back to Dorter. Is that right?
Looks like you start. Yep,
yeah, you go back to Dorter.
Okay, so I thought we went back where I was like, okay, I know how to play this game now. I'm going to do something here. Yeah, I mean, chapter 2, for me at least, the difficulty is hard to ramp up, and I had to start paying more attention to what I was doing. After the final battle of chapter 1 that I had to restart so many times, I really started to dig into the systems and leveling up, and taking myself back to earlier battles. I turned off random encounters, but I would go turn them back on to start leveling up, and not only defeating the monsters in the diorama, but also bonking people in the head when I've gotten the JP boost and start getting everyone JP.
Wait,
Absolutely. The way to approach this game is to have one guy run around killing everything and then everybody else just punching each other.
Just punch, yep, exactly. Bonking each other in the head.
Beating each other to death with hammers.
Does that mean you were grinding out levels?
I was, because after getting my ass kicked for so long, I was like, okay, not only do I have to like strengthen myself to do better in these battles, but okay, I'm digging into the systems and I'm realizing, to unlock these different jobs, I need to level these. Oh shit, I have so much to level up. Okay. I don't know how you do it without grinding in this game, to be honest.
I mean, that's the thing too, that the JP Plus or whatever it's called, something that was, I realized that at one point it was like, because there are other things that will take that slot that are sort of more quote unquote useful in a given battle. And that was something I had to kind of start teaching myself to do. It's like, if it's like a really hard encounter coming up, you need to put, whatever useful things in that slot. But when you're done, don't forget to slot back out for JP Plus so that you can keep kind of climbing the ladder and unlocking all of the other classes to get the boots that you really want.
The 2 tricks in the original one was punching or throwing rocks.
Yeah, that's it. The rocks. I would throw rocks at people. That's it.
You could take the weapons off and do an unarmed attack.
You don't have to do any of that. You could just use focus.
But that focus is expensive.
I thought you had to spend on that one.
Expensive?
It takes
in terms of JP.
MP.
No, focus doesn't. That's a skill.
But it costs something like 400 JP at the beginning of the game, and so you have to kind of grind to get to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas throwing rocks is cheap, or rush, or dash, or whatever the tackle ability is, it was cheap to unlock, and so the trick was absolutely that, like, grind squire levels until you can get focus, and then just like have your guys sit around in a corner and focus. Or in Ramza, use Tailwind, which increases the speed and becomes like a self-fulfilling kind of thing. And at that point, because
sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, there was this mechanic of spillover JP where it was like, if you were in a battle with like the other characters, like if Ramza uses a squire, as a squire and is earning JP as a squire, everybody else is earning a fraction of that.
Yeah.
So.
Is that the spillover? It isn't between like if I'm a white mage, some of the JP spills over into black mage. It's that there was another black mage with me.
Correct.
Okay. Because that would open up some characters and be like, whoa, I don't remember ever using you for any of these jobs, and yet.
What? I don't think you have to have the characters in this version. Originally, you did.
Half the characters.
Like, I don't think you had to
You mean
have
in your
that
party?
job. Yeah, you didn't have to have that. I think in this one, like, you could have a party of squires and still be getting JP for knights if you've done enough without having a knight active in your party.
Oh.
I
But
think they
in the
gave you.
original, you had to have that in your party, and you would get and that knight had to use the skill for everyone to get a portion of that JP spillover.
Maybe I'm misremembering the mechanic. I think in the original it was just, job, one person who has that job spills over that job's JP, but
Right.
it could be, I don't know. It ends up being ridiculous later in the game if you spend a lot of time grinding with Ramza because well, at least for me, I typically left him in the squire job for a lot of the game. And then, so everybody ends up mastering squire at the end, not because anybody was a squire, but just because Ramza's in every battle.
Yep.
The one thing I do remember in the original, and now I'm realizing I didn't test it here, is there was a cap on how many job points you could get in a battle.
Really?
Yeah. There was
What?
a point where if you did it for too long, you just stopped getting JP in that battle.
Was that intentional, do you think? Or is this some like hexadecimal rollover error or something like that?
I'm not. I just remember, because I can remember sitting there because this was a rumor, and I remember testing this out. I explicitly remember testing this out. I sat there and I got it in a party, got in a battle, got to where there was two of them left, and they were both almost dead on the enemy, so they run away from me because there's still two of them. So they think that neither one has to fight. So at which point I sat there for like an hour just doing focus, killed them off. Go into the next battle, do the same thing, but this time I did it for 10 minutes and came out and I got the exact same number of job points in both of them that I did. So I was like, okay, so now I don't need to sit there, because there was the conception early on in the original that you would just get into one battle and sit there forever and do it. And then there was some people were having conversations about whether or not it would actually work, and I tested it. It was like, there's no point in doing one battle for an hour when you get the same amount of effort in like 10 minutes.
So,
and I didn't test it in this version to see if that's the case.
I genuinely don't remember that.
I do, because Larry
you did it. Yeah, no.
Larry and Tom will vouch to how much I'm a grinder.
He is quite the grinder.
They knew you were coming for it, Travis, and they said, okay, enough's enough. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah, but Tom, that's a great question. Like, I don't know if it was a limitation of the system that that it capped because of just what the system could compute, or if that was an intentional limiter that they put in. And I think what would probably happen is if I went and checked. Now I'm probably gonna have to go do this now. Dang it!
There you go, man. Get your afternoon.
Anyway,
done.
chapter 2.
Yeah. And, I think, chapter 2 is where I started to come online with the systems and the crunchiness of the game. And obviously the story had already picked up at the end of that last chapter. But thinking back again, I played this, end of September to mid-October. But I don't know if you probably all have seen The Nightmare Before Christmas, but Oogie Boogie. The final creature at the end of this chapter looks like Oogie Boogie to me. Like
yes,
that,
just like him.
What's his name? The Cardinal. The Cardinal, transforms into Oogie Boogie, basically.
Yeah.
Just the whole church story that's starting to build out in this game is,
I wrote down in my notes, Tom's gonna love this part, so...
Yeah, because of the it looks like Oogie Boogie, or because of the church thing, or what?
Because of the church stuff.
Got it.
Tom lore is that he and I met in high school at our Catholic high school. So.
And we're grumpy about it. Yeah.
Aha, got it. Okay, well, you two take it away then.
No, I mean, chapter 2 is like... chapter 2 is great because you have the reveal that Delita's still alive and kicking ass in like the second battle, which I love. And then all of this stuff with Gafgarian Gafgarian betrays you in that battle, and then you have to fight him. You have the first of like the duels with him. Like they have these mechanics where they basically like lock Ramza in a fight with one person while something else is happening. And I remember as a kid that being a big like pain point.
Yeah, I love that at the castle. I think you're stuck on one side with him, and then you have to beat him and then open the gate. Is that how that happened?
I'm curious to know how everyone else approached this, because you guys were, we started talking about like engaging hard with the mechanics and figuring out, how to grind and boost your guys and stuff. I was not doing that at this point. I wasn't doing that until I think pretty deep into chapter 3. I'm just like a tourist, man. I'm just cruising through this stuff and occasionally hitting some bumps, but mostly being okay. That battle with Gafgarian where you are stuck with him on the one side, and I think what you're supposed to do is like, weather some hits and then go open the door so the other dudes can get in and you all fight him together. Like, is that like the intent? I don't know.
So the way that I did it was I died like 2 or 3 times to him by myself. And I was like, I must be doing something wrong. And then I realized that I could open the gate. I was like, I must need to do that. So then the next time I did that as soon as I could. And then it was much easier for me. But it took a while to get those people to come through the gate, the move.
I figured out at some point, because I was doing Ramza as a monk largely at this point in the game. And whatever his chakra move that like recovers HP and MP, I think, but whatever that was would heal me. Like I think Gafgarian's attack, let's say that would do like 50 damage. Chakra would heal me like 51 or something like that. And so I'm just running around away from him constantly. It was embarrassing, but yeah, constantly healing myself while the other, because there's nothing on the other side of that. Like your other dudes also have their hands full.
Well,
go ahead.
There's a dumb trick, which I remembered from the original, and it's still true even at the almost true at the high difficulty version of the re-release, which is everybody on the outside of the Lionel Gate battle is using abilities and weapons that have lightning elemental. And at that point, you can also get the rubber shoes accessory, which nullifies all lightning damage. And so it's less true in this version because break ability still will kind of go, and the summoner still knows something besides Ramu or something. But like in the original, it was, if you knew that, then you could just give all your guys on the outside rubber stuff, and then all of the outside guys can't do anything. Like they just sit there because there's no ability that they have that can damage you unless they happen to like, hop out with throw stone or something unlocked, in which case they can do like trivial damage. So like you can really just like sit there, which is very fun.
Nice. Okay.
But again, like that's really noticing a dumb trick, like
you would never know,
which would have gotten pointed out to you by some guy named Islude347 on.
So there's another trick to this game that works throughout the entire game. And it takes a little bit of observation to recognize it. Any character whose abilities, when they had used them, you see them swing a weapon, that means that ability is tied to that weapon.
Oh yeah.
So if you disarm them, that ability is immediately taken away from them. So in that situation, Gafgarian being he's a dark knight or a fell knight or something like that. He's some sort of knight, right? All of his abilities are tied to his sword. So if you disarm him with Ramza, he's lost everything. And so now all he can do is punch you, and he can't do hardly any damage because he's a knight that's been trained to use a sword, not to punch and do damage. So then he becomes immediately like you've just trivialized his entire toolkit.
So if you've got Ramza with break weapon, then
break weapon is another one that works, right? And it's the same thing throughout the game. If you notice them, like if you see a caster type, you see them swing their staff before the ability goes off. If you break the weapon or if you disarm the weapon, they can no longer use that ability going forward.
Oh.
Or if you spend a long time trying to steal the weapon from Gafgarian in the previous fight because it's unique and make the battle much harder on yourself as a result, then you notice that, and then
that's such a trade-off. Is that like I don't think I successfully stole anything because I do 2 or 3 rounds stealing nothing. I'm like I'm wasting a turn to run away or attack or something.
I did not. I felt bad about
commitment to sparkle motion, I think, is the deal.
Yeah, I was going to say reading these guides. This is like if I had and this is more of a overall thought about this, but like I felt a little bit Like maybe I had fun playing this game. I had a good time with it. When I was reading some guides, though, I was a little bummed out by the amount of like, well, hey, make sure that you hit this random trap tile here or whatever with the treasure hunter ability because you can only get this shield one time,
right,
and it's going to be absolutely essential for the end of the. And I was just like, anytime I saw something like that, it was like, well, you have to steal it because it's the one. It's like, fuck that. I'm not doing that. I do not want to. That it's a level that I just
buy the Prima strategy guide so that you know
Right.
all of the.
Like literally, this goes back to the conversation at the beginning. If you did not have that strategy guide, you missed out on so much in this game. Like
bugs me a little bit. I think that it needs so much supporting material to have you. I would much rather there be, you know, side quests and things like that, you know, maybe you got to slog through 10 of them, but at the end then you get something cool or whatever. The idea that they're hidden in little corners and stuff, it was a part, and like it's fine, I'm not mad about it or anything, but that doesn't appeal to me as a gamer for things when they're so non-obvious, but I guess I'm just not hardcore.
This goes back to like Cloud's Buster Sword, right? Like the only way to get it is in this one specific place with this one but I think even beyond that, like the best sword in the game, I think, isn't it Excalibur? I can't remember. And
Chaos Blade.
Is it the Chaos Blade or
Chaos Blade has higher Excalibur has auto haste and the Chaos Blade is regen. Like
yeah. I mean, I remember in the first game I was dual wielding one in each hand to get both effects. But the point being is the only way to get it is if you get in this one specific fight that happens one time and one time only. You have to get to this square and have this skill, and if you don't have it, you're SOL. I don't disagree with that being kind of jank.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, that was kind of the norm back then. Is like, oh, if you want this,
I'm not even saying that it's bad. Like, I guess what I'm maybe saying something more about myself than the game is that that's a bridge like I'm not going to cross. That doesn't excite me like the fun of that. I would rather just not bother.
I think the way they tried to do it is like it makes you feel like you're special from everyone else, right? Like if you know, you know, but if you don't, it's kind of like you're a plebe for not knowing.
Yeah.
Plebe. There's definitely oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was say I know it's difficult, and I also with Tom I kind of skipped some of those things. I did some of them, skipped some of them, but I just thought having those little almost feels like Easter eggs, like little hidden things throughout the game. It just spices things up as you're going through, and adds a bit of difficulty if you really want to go for
you
it.
Guys where like this is the end all be all, like maybe your favorite game of all time. I actually think it's great that stuff is there because that's good for replayability. And it's like, oh man, I've beaten this game 10 times, but I've never had Excalibur and the Chaos Blade or something like that. So it's fine on the whole, but wasn't for me.
I think I would be more fine with it if it was something you could find more than once.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. That makes sense.
Well, and I mean, there's the whole optional dungeon in chapter. Did any of you guys bother to do that?
I went the dark one where you don't know where you're walking. That thing. Yeah. So I went in there to see what it was like, and I was like, nope, this ain't for me.
You can't see in it because it's totally dark unless you kill enemies and let them go to crystal, and then they get lights up. And also, incidentally, the exit out of it is on in one of the trap tiles, and you just have to find out which one. Yeah, no, there's a lot of bullshit in that. I mean, like that is like the pinnacle of bullshit, and it's
that's what it felt like.
No, just spoil yourself. Just look up the maps online. Like it is fine. The battles are challenging enough. You don't need the extra dumb part.
Yeah. Was it in the original, Ethan?
Yes.
Okay.
And how far down do you go? How many fucking levels are there in this thing?
10. And then there's an ability that you can only get in the first time you fight the boss in the 10th level. There's a special summon. Your summoner has to get hit by and survive. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
It's such horseshit.
Is it any good? The summon?
Yeah, it's good, but
it's good. It's unnecessary.
It doesn't make the game any easier. It doesn't add anything other than you get to say you have it. But to Ethan's point, it's like literally you have to have your summoner be the one to be targeted by it and survive it. And as I recall, it did a buttload of damage that almost all the time it would kill the summoner Like it was designed specifically to kill the summoner, but you needed them to survive it for them to learn it. So basically, you had to just like buff the living crap out of your summoner and hope that they attack the summoner and not your healer that just buffed the living crap out of the summoner.
Yeah, I will say that was maybe the one point where I felt unfulfilled was Ramza, his like final job class is like the Gallant Knight or whatever. But you can't master it unless you get, I think it's Ultima, and it's the same thing where somebody needs to use it on you, you need to survive, and then you basically capture the ability or something like that.
And I think at least that one, correct me if I'm wrong, was in the main storyline. Like that one, like I don't know,
the two assassin ladies, I don't remember their names, but I think they use it, and then also the last boss.
And it's almost a given that they're going to use it on him too.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. But I didn't get it for some reason. I can't remember what, if I was running away or I didn't have. No,
they also have a bunch of other abilities that are kind of more annoying and better that cause status effects, and they won't use them if you're wearing the accessory that blocks it. And so that's kind of it's one of those like looking things up and also a little bit of system mastery of like trying to like bait it out in the right way.
Yeah.
And that's true for almost all the missable stuff. It's like you don't need it to beat the game, obviously.
No.
And it is fun to get once you. Well, it can be fun to get. It can also be really annoying to get. But like you learn little dumb tricks like, oh, well, the knight's abilities to like lower speed and, magic attack or whatever are really useful for stealing all of the stuff from everybody because you can just neuter everyone through that. And but if you don't want to do that stuff, then it's okay. Just enjoy the story, I guess. Now
that is, I would say, the ultimate saving grace is I eschewed all of that, and the game was not super difficult to beat. And so that was because I think all these guides are written to sort of like max you out, and you don't need to be fully maxed out with all the best stuff 100% kind of thing in order to beat it.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Like, and I played on normal. Maybe you did too. Yeah. I felt like there was a lot more that I could have done to min-max myself as whatever job I had, or unlock more advanced jobs. Like there are several jobs I just never even touched in this game. And, despite some of the difficulty spikes, I was able to beat the game. It was rough. But I think, those guest characters later kind of evened it out for me and made up for some of the things I missed.
Yeah.
There, even back in the original, there was people that would beat the game with just squires and chemists.
That's
you can do it.
Sure, it can be done.
Is it the ideal way? Probably not. But you, by no means, do you need to get every specific class, or you can put together any party that you feel that you're comfortable with, as long as you know how to maximize their abilities. You have a solid chance of beating the game.
This is
grinding. All things are possible,
right?
Yes,
I think I did not level up a single chemist, like full stop. Like I basically did this game without items because I was just like, I don't want to. That seems like a useless job. I realized later they could shoot guns, which is kind of cool, but that's what I had Mustadio for, so I didn't care. And then there were a handful of times late in the game where it's like, man, if I had one stinking Phoenix down, this like wouldn't be a problem.
Exactly.
But I would not commit to the chemist class. So
oh my god, how did you beat this without a chemist?
The other thing is, I think it's the chemists have a skill where they can catch items thrown through the air.
Yeah,
and intercept them.
No, that's thief. Chemists can throw items. Like it's an unlockable.
Chemists can throw them.
I think thieves have catch.
I will tell you that skill is fun because
that does sound cool.
It's hilarious when
ninjas show up.
Well, yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah, it's literally like, I'm going to throw this at you to do damage. It's like, no, you're not. I'm just going to keep it. Thank you.
Like fucking football player catching balls.
Yeah. I mean, awesome. the ninja class was great until you realize you just threw away one of your unique swords that you're never going to get back.
No.
I figured that out, and it was like, putting 0 job points into any of that nonsense, because I will just start chucking stuff, and didn't have. And again, I'm sure there's some pipeline, but for that, it was like, well, probably to make that work, you need a reliable source of junk to throw, which would then mean either you're buying it, which wouldn't be a big deal. I had a ton of money by the end of the game, but or you're stealing like good stuff or something. I was like,
yeah. So chapter 3.
Yeah,
Jeff?
I think that takes us through 2. So let's go to chapter 3. Chapter 3 is the most memorable for me, and that's because of the end. But is there anything before the end that anyone wants to talk about?
I want to see Wheatgraph again.
Yeah, we do. We see Wheatgraph again.
Is the whole, the monastery was a cool setting. I liked that because don't you go there super early? Isn't the Orban monastery where you pick
That's
up
where you start,
the
isn't
first
it?
Ophelia?
Yeah. Isn't that where at the beginning where the princess is being taken?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So I thought that there was some. I would be interested with a replay of this game because it does suffer. I feel like a little bit from the way that like a lot of dense fantasy novels do, where it's like there's 10,000 named locations, all with sort of a similar like vowel frequency composition, and they kind of like blur together for you a little bit. This was one that kind of stuck out to me. It was like, oh hey, I actually remember we were here at the beginning of the game, and that you go back to it more than one time to do like kind of some really important stuff was neat. And I liked the layout, the idea that you were going like deeper and deeper into this library that sort of turned into a spooky, cryptic kind of thing. I thought that was cool.
Well, when you get further down there, I think it's when Wheatgraph comes back at a certain point. Like there's the upper level, like where you're walking along the tops of the library, the books or whatever, and then there's the below, and it's like boxed off into different rooms. Like that was really interesting to figure out how to like navigate physically through that.
And cool
space.
too, because is it at the end where you like go and you go down for a little bit, but then you're done with whatever and you leave, but then you come back to it and you go like further down into it, I think, which was. That wasn't obvious.
In the last sequence in chapter 4, like you unlock it by going back to Orborn, and
that was I thought that was a really neat use of space there. That it kind of meant something instead of, because they could have easily just been like yes, it's this other random place that you know the Northern Crater where you've never been. Like okay.
I think the thing that sticks out for me the most is this is where you really start to realize like you keep going back to places you've already been. And the areas have a cohesive design language to them, but they're still finding ways to make them unique in their own. Yeah. Even with it still being like, you've been to the monastery. Okay. And well, now you're back there and it looks like the monastery, but there's something more to it that you missed the first time around.
And even that's an interesting point too, because there aren't that many like tile palettes in this game. No. You know, there's the woods and there's the marsh and there's the castle and, you know, the beach or whatever. There's like, for there not being that many, it is perhaps not surprising for a tactical game, just like the way they arrange the shapes. Gosh, they can put a lot of like character into a place where it's like, oh, you know, this is a castle, but it's all spread out and you're running across the bottom and there's some, you know, an archer up top or something versus like, no, this is like a keep and you need to scale the side of it to get up to the dudes at the top before, you know, they rain destruction down on you kind of thing. And that's all visually, it's sort of homogenous, but the physical shape and topography of it makes it feel all very different and fresh in spite of that, which was cool.
And this is the part where you start to realize that one of Rams's brothers is actually an a-hole. Like you've had hints of him being an a-hole, but now this is where you're like, oh, you're full on.
See, I think you can flip that because I sort of assumed that they were both jerks, but you're right. Here you're like, oh no, one of them is just kind of a self-serving jerk. The other is like straight up arch villain of the game kind of thing. Yeah.
I can't remember his name. It's the one that's voiced by Ben Starr, I believe.
Die Stark.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I was like,
start to get the.
Go ahead.
The joys of a 4-person podcast. Ethan, go.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say. So you know, you get the hints at the beginning, like chapter 1. There's some stuff where it's like clear that Dice Dark has been involved in the kidnapping of
Ovelia
or well, yeah, but no, Elmdor. I was just thinking in chapter 1 flashback because because Larg, who has the worst haircut in the history of video games, decides, you know, he's like, it's okay that your brother accidentally rescued him. It's not a big deal. And then Formov, is that I'm forgetting the name. is the name of the other brother?
The Templar guy?
Yeah, Formov is the one who orders him to shoot, orders Algus to shoot Tetra. So they both seem like they're kind of bad, but Dystar gets like...
Formov is the Templar guy. You're talking about the other brother.
Yeah, I'm talking about the other brother.
Who is the other brother?
Is that Lark?
No,
Lark is the Duke.
Zalbag?
Zalbag,
thank you.
Yes, that's it.
So Zalbag, I think, is the one who orders the shot that kills Tetra, and so you're like, oh wow, both of Ramses' brothers are terrible, and then it gets turned on its head a little bit, where Dystar gets caught up in the whole Zodiac Brave, like we have to fight and kill God storyline, and Zalbag is just sort of just in it for the politics, and
like
is not a bad guy. Yeah.
Well, it's Final Fantasy. You got to kill God at some point.
Oh, of course.
Chapter 4, we'll get there.
Yes, we will. Yeah, right.
So chapter 3, right? Like you start off with stuff where you find the gospel according to Germanic or whatever, and turns out that the Jesus analog was a bad guy.
Surprise.
Then you have the series of battles with involving Rafa and Malik, who are terrible.
I was going to say, I feel like the game sort of built them up to be like, here's some sweet guys, right? Like they were fighting you.
Deadly assassins.
Then you turned them, and they had this cool. And I like forced myself to use them for like I think half a chapter from when you get them to sort of midway through chapter 4. And it was just like, oh, this is exhausting. Like I'm not having fun because it's like you're at the mercy of the damn RNG, and it's just not fun.
Well, the other ones that I used are the female, the sister, I think, is the one we had most access to because the story, like the bits of story that
she helps you
using her
sooner, yeah.
But didn't love her.
Their abilities were the ones where there's like an area of effect, but you don't know which tiles are going to get the hit and how many times. And the determinist in me was not happy with that.
But yeah, and then you get to try to rescue Alma, and then you get to duel Weegraf in Reavanes.
Yeah, man. Let's talk about
best part of the game. Finally. Let's talk about the duel.
Holy shit! So this is I did not know about this. So I had been building my character up how I was building. I think I was a monk. I think that's what I had Ramza as at this point. I had never touched ninja, by the way. I think I was just focusing on monk. So I'm going into this battle. We're going all the way down, and we get into this room. I'm like, okay, I've got set up my party. I've got my the 4 that I'm going to use here, and then it's just you and this guy. And this guy basically one shots you. And I died probably like 10 or 15 times, and I was one night. And I just kept trying, and finally, I just started doing different stuff at Ramza. I started using a ability that I'd never used before called Tailwind, and I was like, "Wait a second!" And I run away from him just enough to not get hit, and just keep doing Tailwind on myself until I was just able to take so many turns against him that's how I beat him, and I was so fucking proud of myself. And I think I texted all of you or Anthony or somebody. And I was so proud of myself, and basically the response was, "Yeah, that's how you do it." I suppose there are other ways to do it, but this is like one of the most popular ways to do it. And I was like, "Wow!" I somehow, not knowing to do this, like figured myself into doing that thing, and I was like, "Oh, either the game is set up so perfectly so that you think you should do that, or I just fucking dumb lucked into it." But that was my experience.
So
I think it's a really poorly balanced fight because you almost have to use that trick.
Yeah.
And knowing the trick makes it pretty easy. It's pretty foolproof. But
Is there a normal way? I thought that if you were a ninja, you could do something here.
Who's got ninjas by this point in the game, though? I don't think most people have that skill. Didn't at least for me naturally. I'm looking at a screenshot of this battle, and some guys at level 34. Unless you were like specifically trying to get to ninja, I don't know that you would have it at this point.
Oh, okay.
In the hard difficulty, at least, Weegraf has 11 speed to start. So even if you were a ninja, you kind of need to be optimizing for speed just to get a move off before he does. And you either basically, if you're not cheesing it with Tailwind, you have to have some way of surviving his attacks or one hit KOing him, because he'll just lightning stab you. He can get you in 2 turns.
Yeah.
So I've always just done the Tailwind thing. I if there's some legitimate way of doing it, I'm not sure what it is.
So
Yeah.
can I tell my story now about
Tom, go ahead.
my I've been waiting the whole, what are we at, an hour and 40 some odd minutes now to confess this, but I'm really excited about it. And Ethan knows this because he helped me through it, but you guys, I did not put any of this on the Discord. So everybody bumps into this the first time and it's a little hard, right? And somehow, Ethan was kind of trying to talk me through this. He's like, oh, you could try, this thing or that thing or whatever. I don't even remember the content of it. But what I did take away from this is that when you kit out your dudes and you can like put different equipment on them, I don't know if you guys knew this, but did you know that you could use different skills from different classes and you could like fill up all those little things?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because this guy has 2 thumbs and didn't know that you could do that until the end of chapter 3.
Wow.
Yeah, dude. One of the old school tricks was like with the monk, right? You get knight first, where you can get this the skill equip heavy armor.
Exactly.
And then you go to a monk and you keep heavy armor on them. That's also why later on it's the main draw to the ninja, I believe it was a ninja, was the dual wield capability. Yeah. So you would go to get ninja, get dual wield, but samurai could do better damage. So then you go back to samurai and then dual wield katanas to just rip things apart.
I just would like to stress this one more time, that I have been spending 3 chapters of this game pouring job points into skills that I assumed were sort of functioning in the background somewhere, and I was not using at all.
Oh, you hadn't equipped anything?
No, I was using whatever the default skill of that job class was all I had.
Oh my God, Tom. This must have been the hardest fucking game you ever played in your life.
It was. It was really rough for a while.
No wonder it took you so long to beat the game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that was really funny.
Like I let you down
over a text message thread. It was just like,
oh my God. The Wii Graph fight. There's three tricks that work without over leveling yourself. One is the one that you came up with, Larry, which is the tailwind thing. The other one, as I recall, was a group of ninjas and you stay just outside of his range and throw shit at him. The third one, and this is the one that I happened into I remember this explicitly, the one I happened into in the original PlayStation 1 was a squad of dragoons, because the second you jump, he can't target you. So what would happen is I would jump, his turn would come, I would land, hit him, jump again. So you just kept doing that. So every time it was his turn, there was no one on the board for him to hit.
That dragoon trick saved my life in chapter 4, because I would be up in the air and everyone else would be dead. He couldn't hit me. Then I'd hit and then I'd revive someone and then jump again. Like fucking healer dragoons for the win towards the end.
That was one of the only generics that I kept through chapter 4, right up to the end. I think I had him in the
so useful.
You can make them even tankier. And this is the funny thing, is I believe it's the chemist has the auto potion skill.
Yeah.
So if you give them that and all you have are like high potions or X potions at the later game or a buttload of potions, then it doesn't matter. Like even if they do hit you, they immediately heal themselves and then you jump and you're off the, like, just in case they do get that shot in, you immediately heal yourself and then you jump again.
Yep. So you would use the Dragoon against Weegraph, the one-on-one fight.
Yeah, I use Dragoon. That's how I got past it originally, and that's how I did it again, because that was just I got into that fight. I saw him. I was like hit a wall because I wasn't over leveled. Amazingly, and then I was like, I remember this a-hole Dragoons. Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, then when sorry, go ahead.
Oh, Larry, go ahead.
No, it's really quickly. When I beat Weegraph, I was so excited, and then I realized there was a second phase.
The Lucavi.
Yeah, the Lucavi, which I died to, and then if I remember correctly, I had to go back to WeGraph. You don't go back to the Lucavi, do you?
No,
Yeah, you have to go
it's
back
not
to
because you don't move space on the battle sort of thing.
This goes back. This was one of those fights that in the original game was the end of people's playthroughs because
I bet.
you die and then you obviously game over and you're like, okay, and my save is so far back that I'm not touching this crap.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. The thing about so one other thing that you could do to kind of cheese that fight a little bit, it doesn't make it totally trivial, is he's using mainly lightning, whatever. I'm only remembering the original version names. Lightning stab.
Oh, okay.
And so if you have, I think, a chameleon robe at that point equipped, which is the sort of absorbs holy thing,
right.
He won't use the move, even though I think in the game technically that's not like how the elemental effects of lightning stab are set up, but it just I don't know. So he won't use that and he'll only use Earth Slash. And then if you have float shoes on, which is just a different accessory, then he won't use Earth Slash and he'll just try to beat you with the sword. So that makes it a little bit easier to stay out of his reach because he just has no long distance stuff. But again, that really relies on you really paying close attention to what he has equipped and the abilities he has. And I'm not sure, maybe if you were like really frustrated and banging your head against the wall and looking at every little hint, you might be able to figure that one out, but it's tough. The fun thing about the Tailwind buff is if you do it enough where you're heading like 6 turns to every one he has,
that's what I had
that carries over into the second phase of the fight.
Makes it easier too.
So you have Ramza with like 70 speed. He gets 3 or 4 moves off before the Lucavi even gets a chance to do anything. And so you can just have Ramza run around and just two-shot him.
Yeah, I remember dying at Belias the first time, so I'm not sure if I got Ramza in close enough to attack or what happened. Because my memory, at least, and again, this was back in October, where I got through WeGraph finally, was just like, this is the best moment of video gaming in my entire life. And then I died to Belias and I had to go back. But am I misremembering that? Do you not go back to WeGraph?
I thought you did.
I think you do. Go back to WeGraph and do it again.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah. So I'm remembering correctly, and I was like, "Oh my god!" But then it was easy to do it a second time, and this thing that was like so difficult just kind of sort of became trivial with that Tailwind. Just took a while. Then I beat Belias when I went back the second time.
And the battle after that is another one where it's like you have to pay attention to speed in a way that you haven't necessarily been through the game because
I hated the battle.
You have to save Rafa.
Sucked.
Saving Rafa sucked, but man, that was not fun.
It sucks so bad.
What they don't tell you, and again, you only realize this once you've done it once successfully. You only have to defeat one of the assassins.
Right.
And then they take off. And it was like, oh, okay, all right. It's not as impossible as it looks. But at this point, I was still trying really hard not to use a guide, obviously, because I did not understand the basic mechanics of the freaking game. But this was one, too, where it was like, that was really getting frustrating. And then you just kill one of them. It's like, oh, okay, all right, that's fine.
This is where the game starts subtly telling you how powerful a time mage is. Right? Like when you first gain access to the time mage, you're kind of like, eh.
Yep.
And then you start to see the real power. Like, oh, wait, the speed keeps stacking. The slows keep stacking. Right? And that's where you start to realize certain things that you've probably been ignoring have a place in the game if you're willing to use them.
Yeah.
And I was really proud of myself because for all of my self-avowed, like, things are too complicated, I don't want to engage with them, I leaned hard into Time Mage. I took my Black Mage and turned them into a Time Mage. And again, that was one of the, I think, 3 generics that I carried through pretty much near the very end of the game. I think she got bumped for Beowulf at the kind of 11th hour in the final encounter. But yeah, that was pretty fun using all the haste and the slow and I didn't get a lot of mileage out of that's the white magic, which is the shield and barrier and stuff like that. That didn't seem as useful, but it was fun to mess with the turns and to speed people up and stuff like that.
I felt like everything, like I messed around with quite a bit of stuff, and I felt like everything found a place in at least one chapter or one battle in a chapter. And that was kind of fun to like, you could really move forward through this game in a lot of different ways. And it kind of rewarded that experimentation. and creativity until you got to chapter 4, which we'll pivot to now, and you start recruiting like badasses. Beowulf, Reese, Construct 8, Cloud, I think, is in this one as well.
Yep.
It bummed me out a little bit though, because there were some people like Mustadio. I tried hard to keep him through. Like I liked using him. I liked the range of the gun and his special abilities were like you could disable people from super far away, and I used that to like really big effect. But I don't know if there's like a curve for like how his damage scales with his level or something. But I felt like he fell off a cliff, sort of thing, where the status stuff was still kind of useful, but he couldn't do anything else.
Guns have a flat damage formula based on either speed. I think speed for the lower level ones and magic attack for the other ones, and it just doesn't keep up. Yeah,
that was kind of and I sort of learned to lean into it though, right? Because it's like, okay, like once people like Orlando show up, it's like, all right, these dudes are clearly supposed to be awesome, and they're replacing your earlier guys, and that's okay.
Yep, that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
When a lot of these were side quests. If I remember correctly, you had to go and get these characters, and I thought that the side quests, when I got to chapter 4, I was like, cool, I'm nearing the end. Like I did not expect to get through this game in basically a week's time. Thanks, COVID. But I was like, well, doing these side quests are going to tack on more time. I'm not sure if I want to do that. Maybe I want to mainline it. But then I decided to, I went after Cloud, obviously, having recently been Final Fantasy VII obsessed. And then I really enjoyed that side quest. So then I started doing other side quests, and I just found joy from getting the side characters. And then once I was using them, I was like, well, later in the game specifically, it's like, thank Christ I have these, because I'm not sure how to beat the game, when I did, if I didn't have some of these tanks, basically.
All right.
The thing that stands out for me in chapter 4 is the fact that the side quests don't feel like filler and fluff. They feel like they add to the world and to the story, and that if you don't do them, you're actually missing out on aspects of this story that should have been there.
Yep.
I kind of wish that they were, it seems, and maybe, I don't know, maybe chapter 4, because if you sort of put it on equal footing with all the other ones, it seems weird that it's like, so it's like a normal game and you get the people as part of the story or whatever. And then at the very end, there's like this kind of large selection of secondary characters that you can or cannot get. I maybe would have liked it if that was like sprinkled throughout the other chapters, like you could pick them up earlier, but I think the idea is that you're supposed to basically be like you said, recruiting these badasses to sort of tank up for the final encounter. So I kind of understand how they pushed them this far, but there were some fun people. Like, I feel like I didn't get to spend hardly any time with Beowulf, Reese, or the robot because I got them so late.
Oh, Beowulf and the robot, or Construct 8, I used a ton.
Yeah.
And I think, speaking back to something we mentioned earlier, and I don't know if it was just Cloud in the original or all of these, but the new version, the Ivalice Chronicles, makes it so that they come in, like Cloud comes into your party basically at your level.
Yeah.
So you don't have to spend time grinding them up.
And Ethan, my memory is hazy here, so keep me honest. It's not that they came in. So Cloud definitely came in at level 1. The other ones didn't necessarily come in at your level. They came in at the level of the area that they were recruited from.
Huh.
That sounds right. Yeah, Cloud was unusual in that he came in at level 1 and was pretty nerfed. But yeah, that sounds right.
Like if you were over leveled, they didn't match your level, but they're like, if you're in a level 50 or 40 area, they came in at level 40 when you recruited them, even if you were level 50.
Okay.
It's such an interesting decision, though. Like, from a gameplay perspective, I guess I'm trying to understand why. Because
for them coming in at the level of the area makes perfect sense, right?
Maybe I'm specifically thinking about Cloud because it's so easy from like just on the back end side of things, right? Okay, let's pull in this person has all these characters recruited, take the top third of them, average their level, slap that on the new guy, and now they're functional, right? Whereas if you don't do, like with Cloud being at level 1, it's almost like they didn't want you to use him
that's kind of my take on this, and I have nothing to say. If you look at the entire world and you look at all the characters and then you look at Cloud, he does not belong. He looks
absolutely
completely
not. Yeah.
different. So I think it was more of them just being like, this is us paying homage to Final Fantasy VII. And since he doesn't belong in this world, he's not going to abide by the rules that we've set forth, and therefore he's not going to be at that level. So I think I could be wrong, but my take on it is they wanted you just to get him for the collection aspect and not for the usage.
Okay. I didn't end up
that feels right
when he was properly leveled.
But his limit break ability is pretty badass.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
I think it's better in this version than it used to be, because you used to have the materia blade equipped and it was terrible. Like, it just didn't have much output and his charging was super slow, and it was just always very frustrating to use him.
But it was better.
Still don't use him out of habit, but
out of habit because you're used to using other characters, so you like them better.
Yeah, basically, like I feel like I used Beowulf a lot more this time through than I did previously, and I think it was because I was experimenting more with debuffing as a way of kind of controlling the flow of fights that on the higher difficulty. But yeah, I mean, I always just kind of fell into, well, I'm going to use Ramza, I'm going to use Orlando, I'm going to use Agrias,
Yep.
Melia Duel maybe, or and then like a calculator or some other kind of generic, but late game kind of somebody to do the healing and the mass damage output, and not,
I had like maybe I don't know. It was like a span of a couple of hours where I was deep in the Melia Duel. Is that what you said her name was?
I don't know.
Yes, the night
that's how I said her name when I was 13.
Right. Yeah. There was I needed somebody, and I just like sort of tossed her in and was like, let's see what you're up to. I think where I fell off on this game, like where I put it down, was immediately after you recruit her. And so when I picked it back up a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't until I scrolled to the bottom where I have all of these breeding chocobos in my recruits that is like, oh, what are you doing down here at the bottom? And it's like, oh, you're super useful. Let's get you up at the top where you belong.
That breeding chocobo thing is still one of my biggest pet peeves.
Why?
Why can't I have the ability to disable their freaking procreation, man?
There's something weird too with the level scaling on it, because I'd scrolling through there and it's like, damn, like level 50 chocobo. What are you doing in here?
Well, so the problem in the original game is there was, and I didn't let it happen this time around. So maybe it still existed, but you had a limited number of character slots. And you get the chocobo, and if you didn't know what you're doing, an hour later, you're playing the game, and you're like, "Oh, I got this person that I can recruit in the story." It's like, nope, you don't have any space. Bye.
I think you used to be able to boot out,
because that still happens, and at least in the new one, they just say, "Do you want to kick me out?"
I can remember missing out on a character in the very first one, and I wasn't able to boot out anybody in the original. And then having to go back to previous save, because I did not realize that the chocobos were freaking rabbits, dude. Yeah. I did not know that crap.
Yeah, I would periodically. One of the systems in the game is totally optional, is the notion of poaching monsters, right? Where and then there's the shop where you can trade in their
pelts.
Their pelts for high-level items, if you're lucky. Exactly. Yep. Which means by the end of the game, I had like 7 copies of the perfume that makes you essentially immortal, because it has re-raise and it just keeps going. But yeah, so I would always end up with a bunch of pigs, because pigs were the ones that had the really good unlockable items. Like I would kick all the chocobos out except Boko, because whatever. But
Boko's
I had a million. It's like Ramza and 5 holy knights and 30 pigs, and we're gonna go kill God.
Do the other animals? I mean, because the chocobos like lay eggs or something like that? Like,
yeah, they all lay eggs.
Okay,
yeah.
That makes no sense.
Gross.
Chapter 4, side quests. Those are fun. Deep Dungeon is stupid, but it's fun.
But you feel like you're kind of
spoiling yourself.
You feel like you're kind of funneling towards an end, and I feel like chapter 4 is where it just like opens up. And it's like, oh, here, do a whole ton of shit. Yeah. Go find Aerith and get a flower. Like, really? Wow, this is great.
I was gonna say, chapter 3 feels like you're right there in the end when you get to the end of it, and all of a sudden chapter 4 like, fooled you, you're only halfway there.
Well, I was like, I'm close to the end. This is cool. I'm gonna get through this. We're gonna be able to do our podcast sooner than later. And then it just keeps going and going. I was like, wow. But usually when I'm at that point and I'm like, oh, this thing is just going and going, I'm kind of like done. I was not done. I wanted it to keep going, which was awesome.
I don't remember if you remember this. Like, you made the comment in the Discord channel, like, "Oh, I just finished chapter 3," and I'm like, "Oh crap, you're almost done." And Anthony's like, "No, dude, remember chapter 4?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, you're about halfway through the game." Like, I had completely forgotten about that aspect of it until Anthony reminded me. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. Chapter 4 is like 40% of the entire game."
Yeah, that's what it felt like, especially when you do those side things. Yeah. So do we want to talk about the ending?
Sure. Well, I mean, like, there's lots of dumb stuff to do in chapter 4 if you really feel like trying to steal everything that's, every character has. Like, the Elmdor fight is, I think, the most notorious of these, where like he has this unique set of like the best armor in the game and an ability that blocks basically everything and the ability to turn all of your guys into vampires, and you want to steal it. And so you have to really, it takes a while. They took that out in the PSP version and like had a different way of acquiring that stuff. But then, yeah. And, when you do it and it's cool and you have it and it's nice and it's totally unnecessary for the rest of the game.
Well, you just have the one though, right?
Yeah.
That's why people were excited about the new game plus, is because now you can farm that armor essentially on a very, very meta scale.
What end?
Yeah. That's kind of how I felt with chapter 4. Like at the beginning, at least, is like, okay, I can do some of the stuff I see in the guide. I can go get the stuff, but to what end? Like, I'm getting close to the end of the game, and then 30 hours later, I was like, oh, I could have. I was not near the end of the game. I had more shit to do.
What?
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about
that last? I was saying, did you want to talk about sort of the last sequence of stuff that you just finished on?
Before we jump into that, like, what level did you guys end up at the end of the game?
Travis. Not answering this question.
What's the max?
The last one I wrote down was starting the final battle sequence. Most of the enemies are about level 45, and I was about level 55 or 65.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I was. I think I was around. Again, I don't have it in front of me, but I think I was around late 50s. Is where I ended.
I love how consistent we are.
Oh no! How underleveled were you?
I was not bad. It was 53 was my top. Yeah. So, but definitely the lowest still, I'm sure.
As
Travis,
you go through,
show your cards.
Yeah.
Do I honestly have to answer this question?
You do.
Yes.
It's in the Bible.
When I first played this game back in 97, my party was around 64, 65. I remember this because I was 61 when I got Cloud, and I was pissed that I had to put that much effort to get him up to speed. Mm-hmm. I think I got him up to around 40 something, and I said, fuck this, I'm out. I don't have the patience for this shit.
You had patience for 2/3 of it, though.
Yeah, I did. I had patience for 2/3 of it, and then I finally gave up. I got tired of. This is where I discovered there was a max cap on job points.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I have to confess, I'm looking back at my notes and I realized that I was level 55 or 65 for everybody except Ramza. Ramza was level 80.
Oh my God.
But it was because I had done a ton of grinding for so I'd done all of the Midnight's or Deep Dungeon, Midnight's Deep, whatever they call it. The optional dungeon, which is really hard. And I had also decided to try to poach a bunch of stuff. And so Ramza was my kind of go-to for that. So he was horrifically overleveled.
See, it's not just me. That's all I'm going to say.
I wasn't grinding him on purpose. It was just more like it happened. But yeah, no.
Just go through all of our podcasts for the RPG backlog. No. Consistently, I'm in the middle. Tom's at the lower end, and Travis is way, 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 way further ahead.
Well, I'm just supporting Travis here.
My average party level was 82. It's not my fault.
There you go. Is it not? Okay, got it.
And to be fair, this happens every time. I'm not grinding for anything I'm not grinding to over level.
Just to love the game, man.
I just, for something with all these games, something happens while I'm playing it where my brain turns off and I just start going back and forth doing random battles, trying out different things. So that's all I'll say, right? So it wasn't like I was trying to be OP. It just kind of happened that way.
So I'm kind of curious with how this corresponds to the hours that you put into the game.
I don't know. I'm not going to turn on my Steam
I'm not
Deck
gonna look.
to look. I don't want to look.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure mine was 65 hours all told. But why don't we kind of head towards the ending here? Why don't we get towards the end of this game and wrap up? For me, the airship at the end was just exceptional, where you're fighting the Lukavi, and that battle took me a while. Like its ultimate, I think, is coming in at the end there, right?
Yeah.
That's what it took me a long time. Not probably more than WeGraph, actually. I was like, oh, this is the true difficulty spike here, but then I started to realize I was fucking up my party and needed to readjust.
I stumbled into a cheese on this and felt really satisfied with myself. Beowulf has an ability called Drain, which is do you guys ever use gravity at all?
Yep.
So most of the time, gravity-based magics are percentages. I want to say it's like 25% of total hit points is what it hits for.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And most of the time, I think the game is set up so that bosses and good enemies are immune to gravity attacks. Drain is essentially mirrors the mechanics of a gravity-based attack, but the bosses do not have immunity. And so you need 4 hits from Beowulf's Drain to kill anybody. And I figured that out, and it was like, oh, this hits for 999. Great. That's how this plucky level 53 party is gonna make our way through here. So that was what saved my bacon at the end.
Well, that was what kind of surprised me when everyone's like, oh, didn't really use Beowulf. I'm like, he was always kind of a staple.
Essential
for me.
He seemed like it was essential.
I wish I had gotten him a lot earlier. I got him very much at the tail end of this.
Yeah, I think that because when I was younger, a big number was what I was going for in terms of damage, and I wasn't interested in cheesing it to get him to do that. Like he just seemed like I don't really want to put people to sleep or whatever. But in retrospect, that was silly. Like he's really great, and he's actually made better in this version because in the original PSX. There were items that were gender specific, like specifically male characters couldn't equip ribbons except Cloud if you could, or perfumes. And a lot of the highest level, like the most broken accessories were perfumes because it's like the one that Melia Duel starts with in the battle you fight against her, like has automatic re-raise, right? So a kind of a thing I was doing in some of these battles was letting Beowulf get his ass kicked, but he would re-raise, have like 10 HP, but he has got that one ability that scales to how much of his max HP is missing.
Oh, cool.
And so you could just, so you kind of let him get killed, or he gets killed, of his own volition. And then just, he can just tag everybody from 8 tiles away with whatever that ability is. It was called Shock in the original with an exclamation point. I remember that, but I don't remember what it's called this time.
That's bizarrely niche and sexist that there were gender
wasn't funny
items. Yeah, it's weird. Did they remove that from this?
Yeah. So everybody can equip perfumes, which actually makes it so that it's really hard to lose the game. Because if you could just equip Ramza with that and everybody else with, it's like, you'd have to have all of your characters die simultaneously for that not to kick off.
Yeah.
But as promised, Larry, you got to the end and you got to kill God. That was, we wanted to make sure.
You get to kill God. It's a Final Fantasy game. And then it wouldn't be a Final Fantasy game without some sort of, post-credits thing where you've got people stabbing each other, getting all brutal with each other.
This is my other story. I had that spoiled for me, like months and months and months ago. I was on a subreddit or something, and it was like, oh yeah, man, when Ivalice stabs Delita, that's crazy. And I remember reading at the time, being like, put this in the vault, forget it, just keep scrolling, put something else in your brain, kind of trying to mentally run away from it. I then didn't play this game for 4 or 5 months. Kind of forgot about it, got to the end of this game and the credits are rolling, and I go, huh, that must have been somebody was like a meme or a joke or like a fan fiction or something. That must have, I guess whatever, huh? And there's like, I'll leave the credits, see if there's a little thing at the end. And sure enough, he gets stuck. But I don't think he gets killed.
No, I don't know if he gets killed. He gets stabbed for sure, and then he stabs her back, right?
He definitely kills her, I think.
Yeah, she dies, but I don't think I didn't get the impression he died.
I don't think he does. He's the
that was kind of my read of it, was that he doesn't. He's just kind of alone because everyone he loved or whoever loved him was dead.
Yeah, and I think him living with the guilt of what he just did, which I assume he is punishment.
It was a really interesting creative decision to end the game on like such a fatalist note, right? Like, you kind of, Ramza and his sister's Alma, right?
Yeah,
they go off and live in obscurity, and he seems pretty content with that, which I felt like was nicely consistent with his character the whole time, that he like did not care about being nobility, and so to just walk away from it at the end was like, yeah, that's super believable that's what he would do. And
you end with the lead of just thinking about like, what did you do, Ramza? Like, what was your life like, basically?
Were you happy with where this all ended up?
Exactly. And I felt like, yes, he's off living his best life.
Yeah. And then was it before that though, because that happens after the credits, but before the credits you get sort of the little epilogue about Oron, right?
Yeah,
he got a raw deal, like keeping the flame alive to tell people what really happened. And actually this dude Ramza, man, he was such a solid guy and we all owe him our thing. Burned at the stake, like, gosh.
Yeah, well, and this is something that maybe I just was dumb when I was a kid, or I feel like maybe they made it clearer what the intent was. I always kind of was like, I'm not sure if Oran was sort of hallucinating seeing Ramza, right? Like, but I think in this version, it is really, really obvious that it is in fact Ramza and Alma are alive.
Yeah.
A bunch of those people have survived, by pulling,
Yeah.
But I felt like in the original, it was like, I'm not sure if this is actually happening, right?
Force ghost or something.
I'll
much more explicit about being able to use the Zodiac stones to get out of the airship, right? In this version, which was not, maybe I'm like I said, I think you kind of get the impression that they were trapped and everything crumbled around them, and in the PSX version, and maybe they just wanted to clarify. No, so Ramza's alive. He just
he's fine.
Was a good dude.
I'll echo that I remember from the first time wondering how much after they ended up being like, A, holy shit, that all happened, but B, being like, but did it happen? Was Oren just hallucinating this stuff and this isn't really what happened? So, and this time around it was like, no, this is what happened in the story. But I had the same feeling, and I don't know if to your point, I don't know if it was because I was 97, 17. Oh my gosh. I was a teenager, right? So I don't know.
Well, it was an impactful ending. It felt like the ending of this sort of Shakespearean story it deserved, basically. Left me feeling good. And I know that we could continue talking about this game for a long time, but I think I think we might wrap it here. Yeah, we hit just a little over 2 hours.
To us.
So just really quickly, this is a game that I came to later in life. This is the first time I played it, and it's one of my top games ever. This is an incredible game. I think it's really held up. Any final thoughts from anyone else?
Still my favorite game of all time. Still the best story of any game I've ever seen. The only game that comes close got a shaft by running out of budget and time. So,
no, this is one of my favorites.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say for someone who's new to it, boy, did it live up to the hype. Like people talk about this game in sort of hushed tones and reverent voices, and it really, I think it deserves all of that. And in particular, I think the remaster here seems to have checked so many boxes to make it even easier and more fun to play. And I think this is probably about as close to a definitive edition of it as you're probably going to get. And it was a lot of fun.
Ethan, take us home.
It's a really great game. It is. I think it really does have it really hits the sweet spot of lots of mechanical choices that are interesting to master, and different things you can do to play through it to keep it interesting, and a story that is really quite good. And where the writing is solid and the plots are, the plot is fun and interesting and complicated enough that you feel like worth trying to figure out. So, 2 thumbs up.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for sticking with us for 2 hours. Final Fantasy Tactics, incredible. Thanks to Ethan, Tom, and Travis for being here. If you like our podcast, please rate it on your podcast service of choice. And we will be back another time with another RPG from our backlog. Until then, thanks for listening. See you next time.